You know, I've been told that this cup that we have, these cups we have here at Comcast are actually plastic. But I'm quite convinced that they're actually a very flexible crystal that you can bend thusly, and they always return to their crystalline shape. Okay, welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I have with me today Daphne Clarke-Hudson. Briefly, she does her own show at Comcast, and she'll talk a little bit about that. She'll talk a lot about that because I have nothing to say today. So without further ado, Daphne Clarke-Hudson.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Glad to finally have you.
I've waited like 19 plus years to be on this show, so I take this as an honor to be here.
The waiting was worth it, I hope.
Yes, I know it is well worth it. And I can't wait to see what evolve out of our dialogue tonight. So I'm excited to be here, to be honest.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we count on honesty from our guests. So tell us, first of all, the name of your show, and then what it is about, and then specific shows, and I'll ask you questions about specific shows and specific things that you do. Go ahead.
My show is called A New Day, Your Guide to Personal Empowerment, and the latter portion of my statement explains it all. I'm a personal development and empowerment coach and speaker. Deal specifically with women business owners, help them to discover what makes them unique and valuable in their industry so that they can increase their profits without being burnt out. Because you know, we women, we wear a lot of hats, and needless to say, we get burnt out too, and oftentimes we neglect ourselves. So when I get on my set, most times I am here by myself for a reason. I love when I have guests, but I always have specific topics that I need to deliver and to pass on to my viewing audience, so they will also understand the importance of self-care, self-acceptance, and empowerment. So that's what I do. I have fun when I'm on the set.
My mom wore, as you say, many hats. She was a school teacher. Mm-hmm. She also was the head of our household, and well, my dad would never have admitted to that. He was always thought of himself as being the head of the household, but ultimately every decision came down to my mom, Eileen Kelt Stevenson, and she was just remarkable. As I know that all women are remarkable that work outside the home and have a full-time job in the home, raising children, taking care of the household matters, and making all the tough decisions that men obligingly give them the opportunity to make.
Yes, and the thing that I've noticed in my area of expertise is that women are very humble, so they won't step up and say that. But the important things that I get them to understand and realize, David, is that they can have a balance. Because they think when they're raising a family, when they're a wife, they can't look about themselves. Because over the years, they have been taught that to attend to themselves is a bit of being selfish. And I said, no, it's self-empowering, because unless you're in a position to give from your excess, then you're not living a life of abundance. So be a good wife, be a good mother, be a good mother-in-law, be a good community leader, be a good deacon at the church, be a good school teacher, Sunday school teacher, soup kitchen operator, just to name a few. You can be all of those things as long as you have understand about putting yourself in number one position.
I've been told, and very possibly it was you that told me this, that the more hats a woman wears, the more responsibility she has, the more jobs she does, those women tend to be the most humble.
Yes, because they're not doing it for the accolades. And oftentimes I'll say to the woman, for example, many women have the practice of saying, you'll say, oh, that's a nice blouse. And she'll reply, oh, that old thing, I got it at the thrift shop. And I teach them to say thank you. Because no one is asking where you bought it. All they're saying to you, they are giving you a compliment that you wear it well and it looks good on you. So it's really elevating your energy. But many women, they are brought up from girls, you know, don't be boastful. And they don't tend to take pride in themselves. So women can be a lot of work, but it's well deserving it, you know?
Yeah, they, what they'll do, I guess, is even though the compliment was meant exactly as that, a simple compliment, the best answer, as I think you just said, the best answer for a woman to respond with is a simple thank you.
Exactly, because, you know, I'll go back to my humble beginnings growing up in Jamaica, David, and a lot of kids growing up, their new outfit is always recreated from an old dress that a mother was through wearing. So she wore that dress, it tore. So instead of mending that garment that was tore, she would then cut it and use the cuttings from that dress to make a smaller garment for a child. If it's a girl, it's a dress. If it's a boy, it's a shirt. So women over the years have learned how to be creative. So, you know, we can make something out of anything. I remember, just with the soup bowl in front of me, I want to just piggy on this. I remember a few years ago when we had an early storm here. I forget what we call. I forget which one it was.
Early in the winter or early in the year?
Yeah, we did. Early in the winter, we didn't have any electricity for how many weeks? You remember?
That would have been, well, I remember one back in October.
Sandy. It was. I think it was Sandy.
I remember back in October of 1987, I think, where we had a storm while the leaves were still on the trees. And the problem with that is that when the ice forms on the branches and the leaves are still on the branches, then all the weight will take a lot of branches down. And I remember waking up and hearing what sounded like gunfire. It was so loud.
Because it was dropping.
And what it was branches that were bending and not able to get rid of the ice because the leaves were still on them.
Right.
I ran out, and all the trees that we had in the yard we had dogwoods and things of that nature, and I went out and shook the branches to get the ice off of them, so that they wouldn't just completely be ruined.
Right. But to just go back to the soup, thanks for sharing that, David. I think it was Sandy a few years ago.
Okay, there was another one,
yeah, we didn't have any electricity, so I took everything out my refrigerator and I made some soup, and I took it to my friend, and she tasted the soup, and she was digging in the soup to find meat. But there was no meat in the soup. And she looked at me and she said, God damn it, you can make a gourmet meals out of rocks. This thing always sticks with me because now I'm practicing vegan, and a friend of mine out in Ohio said to me, how can you afford to go vegan? I said, girl, I'm not affording to go vegan. I was born and raised on this stuff. We just didn't have a label for it. Because, you know, meat was a precious commodity.
Yeah.
We don't always have it when I was growing up. So all of the veggies, when we made pea soup, it was like 3-4 quarts a piece. So you stick the spoon in it, and it stood erect like a tree growing tall. You know, now I came here and people having a broth and that soup. Come on.
So there's a big Jamaican community here in the Danbury area. Where in Jamaica did you grow up in? And the essential question is, what happened? What are your life experiences that brought you to where you are now, doing your show and giving good, sound advice to people?
I was born and raised in Westmoreland, the western part of the island. If you have ever been there,
I haven't.
That's the, oh, you owe it to yourself, honey. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
So it's the part of the island where Negril Beach is. So we have a lot of white sand beaches there. And I was born and raised in humble settings. My parents were farmers, James Clarke and Leonora Scarlett Clarke. They were farmers. So I actually grew up on a farm where everything we ate was fresh.
Yeah.
Vegetables were harvested from the ground to the pot to your plate. So now when I see all the fuss about organic, I look back and I say, man, there was no label on it, but that's what I grew up with. I lost my mother at age 13. And so majority of my life I spent,
time.
yes. My mother was an asthmatic,
Yeah.
and because my father was a farmer, and back then, farmers tilled the soil with a pitchfork and their hands. They didn't have tractors. Plus, they were poor.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford that. So the men would go around and they would do what they call workmen, meaning we work your farm, we move to Mr. Jones's farm, and men pool their resources. And it was just now in my adult life living here, I realized that to my core, my life started off networking, because that's what those men were doing. As they were moving from one farm to another, they were actually networking to make sure each other's soil got tilled and that the provision was in the ground in time for harvest. And when my mother would have her asthmatic attack, I would have to stay home from school to look after her.
So you lost time from school, but
Lost time from school, but the
you managed-
value,
Yeah.
the value was in me, because my mother used to say to me, four-poster bed,
Yep.
tall, I would climb up in the bed, kneel down, and I held her chest close to mine just so she could breathe better. And I remember Mama saying to me, you're going to be a good nurse one of these days. The only difference is that you're going to wear a uniform and cap and you're going to get paid. You remember when nurses wore all of those things?
Yeah.
And she said, but you're going to get paid. So she pre-programmed me. And prior to my mother's death, the bank account back then were animals. So there were some pigs,
Yeah.
2 cows, goats that were being raised and reproduced to sell to send me to England to do nursing. So my mother died, but the dream of becoming a nurse never died. And even as I sit here today, I can hear my mother's voice telling me I can do it. And I live my life with that. So although I did not go to England to study nursing, I studied nursing at the local hospital in St. James, at the Montego Bay Hospital. And then I went into public health. But even then, David, I did nursing differently. I love to talk. And I would come to you to give you your medication, and instead of giving you your medication, I would say, Mr. Stevens, what you had yesterday when I was off? Who came to visit you? What did the doctor say? And at the end of that, oh, by the way, sit up and take your medication. So I was never seeing my patients as patients. I saw them first as individual. And I have intuitive listening. I listen to people to connect. So I'm always picking out the rosebud out of a conversation. And my coworkers would get upset with me. They say, Clarke-Hudson, you always talking. Why you always have to talk to everybody? But it was just part of who I am.
Well, you're being humble, I think, here in the sense that you say that it's intuitive, but we'll have to say that it was a lot of hard work on your part to develop those skills. Maybe it began as an intuitive notion, but there was a lot of incredibly hard work that went on your part. Now, I have a family member and a good friend, Diane Stevenson and Emily Volpentesta, that went through that situation where their mother wasn't available to them from the age of 10 for a period of time, illness. And very, very difficult at that age to not have your mother around. I think it makes it more difficult for a girl if it's the mom, or a boy if it's the dad, that suddenly is not there. And it's You have to, you really have to make adjustments, and partly intuitive, I'm sure, but partly the help of the other parent and the help of the family in general to get you through tough times like that. Because we're talking about years.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Years that this went on, not only with you, but with them. And it's extremely, it's a whole nother way of living.
Yes.
And nobody can tell you what you have to do. You have to figure it out for yourself.
The intuitive part came later when I became an adult, but you are so on point. As a child growing up, and my father trying to braid hair, sending me to live with my auntie.
He made the effort. That's good.
He made the effort, sending me to live with my aunt during the week. And of course, going to live with my auntie, God bless her soul. A lot of my family don't like when I talk about that, but it was not the best of times living with her. But I pursued, and part of what kept me those years is the words that my mother always tell me, Dave, when I was kneeling in that bed when she was having her asthma attack. Sweetie, you can become anything you want to become in life. Anything. And I can still hear it. And even now, when I encounter any struggles or any adversity, I hear my mother telling me, you can do it, sweetie, just go for it. Don't let anything or anyone deter you from that.
The voice is there within you.
Within me. I oftentimes refers to it as my song because that's what guides me, you know?
Completely off topic, sort of. But what fruits and vegetables are grown in Jamaica, and how do they differ from the fruits and vegetables that are grown elsewhere in the world?
A lot, and I can only speak about when I was growing up. My father never used fertilizer. So what we call peeling skin. So it's what from the kitchen, whatever is peeled on the trunk of the banana goes back.
Yeah.
So everything is whole food. Everything is freshly harvested. But let's talk about ripe banana and mangoes.
Okay, that's good.
Let me tell you something.
My two favorite fruits, so go ahead.
Oh, you cannot go walk into a home in Jamaica and there is banana and mango there and you not know. Because the aroma would hit you from like way out the train line from the studio here. And now I walk in the house, you have bananas, and you only smell when they start to get rot. You don't have that nice aroma and the sweetness of the fruits. The oranges, fresh. You go out, you pick it from the tree. And the closest taste I get is when I'm down in Florida and get one of the Florida oranges.
Right off the tree, yeah.
Right off the tree. But the taste, when it hits your taste bud, it's heavenly. So, you know, the vegetables, and they're sweet. Everything is so sweet. And there's a special taste. Now, I know here you're eating the carrots and you think, you know, it's yellow, but you don't know what it tastes of. It's jam-packed with a lot of water, and there's not the sweetness. And plus, they're traveling so far to come to our stores anyhow.
Yeah.
So just all of the abuse in the shipping and the traveling, they're really not as fresh, but
they're still great, but they're just not quite as
and you know
as
something?
great.
There are many people, adults, David, our ages, who has never seen a fruit tree. Their entire lives, they have only seen their fruit and vegetables in the stores. So for me, it's such a privilege to be born and raised in Jamaica, and I have this rich heritage of going out, pick a mango off the tree, pick a soursop, pick a ripe banana off the bunch, and all of that. It's just so great.
And here's from me to you, the audience. The perfect breakfast is a bowl of oatmeal and sliced banana, sliced mango, strawberries to some degree. Anything fresh fruit on oatmeal. And I always make my oatmeal with milk, skim milk rather than water, because I like the flavor of the milk along with the flavor of the fruit. Continue.
Can I tell you something about oatmeal? It's so funny. Jamaicans, oh, we love food. We love to eat.
What
so
grains?
porridge.
I was going to ask you, what grains do you have there?
We have corn, and it's not the generic corn like you have here. So we make hominy, we make porridge.
Yeah.
So what you call oatmeal, we call it oatmeal porridge.
Porridge,
Okay?
Yep.
But guess what? It's not just the porridge. We are having boiled banana with saltfish or some meat with it. So it's in addition to the porridge. So this is a meal for you, the porridge. That's your breakfast. This is like an appetizer moving into the real breakfast, which is the roasted breadfruit or the mackerel and banana or something. We always have something.
Breadfruit, okay, good. Yeah.
Breadfruit, you can look on the internet, you'll see what that is.
Yeah, I've had some, yeah.
And oh, so you've had that. You're
Yeah.
hanging out with some Jamaican folks. And it's all roasted. So we have a healthy, healthy, healthy breakfast. We would never think of just having the cereal for breakfast. Cornflakes, which is like the only cereal I knew growing up, it was, and cornflakes, Kellogg's cornflakes, we were accustomed to. That was snack.
Rather than the sugar frosted flakes?
Yeah, I didn't know. Maybe they have it now because it has become so Americanized. But just cornflakes, and it used to be a snack.
Yeah.
And you mix the sweetened condensed milk,
Yep.
and we pour it on that. And that was snack, a pick-me-up until the meal is ready. It's never just your breakfast, you know?
Now, the sweetened condensed milk, and I saw the same thing in Cancun, which is it's as close as I've been to the climate in Jamaica, but it's very difficult to raise cattle, at least dairy cattle, in a hot climate.
Yes, and I remember as a child growing up, I used to look for early in the morning to wake up to go with my father when he was going to milk the cow. And the milk from the udder is as hot as it came off the stove. Because I would always get to drink 2 cups of that. I finish drink and I go back home.
Because
Just the raw milk.
the cow. I guess the cow. Well, the body temperature of a cow is higher than ours. It's higher than 100, higher than 98.6.
Yes.
So it's going to be warmer than our. It's going to taste. It's going to feel very warm to us just to begin with, because a cow is coming out of a warmer animal.
Right, and it's not pasteurized or anything. It was. Oh my gosh, just. Ooh, I'm salivating just thinking back. I had a great childhood. I'm telling people, this even now, if I don't eat right, my core is solid. I have a solid core, so.
Yeah, the unpasteurized milk, where it actually separates. The cream actually comes to the top, and you have to, in order to get it to mix up, you've got to vigorously mix it up.
And make the butter. That's how my mom used to make the homemade butter. No, I think they do that down south here. I don't know if you have people in the north here that does that.
There are a lot of farms in the northern part of the United States too.
That really does.
They have the real butter, which is a lot healthier.
And it tastes so different, you know.
Yeah.
It tastes so different.
So, going back to Jamaica, when did you begin giving people sound advice on their lives? Did people give you advice which rested in you and gave you the basis to begin giving other people of advice?
I'm an avid reader. I always like to read and to listen to conversations. However, I think my global outlook on life began when I was back home in Jamaica and I became the Montego Bay Atlanta Sister Cities Committee President for like 14 years straight. So I started traveling to Atlanta and having that experience.
So they were sister cities, Montego Bay and Atlanta?
Montego Bay and Atlanta were sister cities. So I started traveling, going there and learning from other people and exposing myself to this knowledge. And I did not realize I was giving people advice until I came to America and realized there was this practice called coaching. And I was thinking of becoming a coach. And I began writing people that I know to say whether or not this would be a good vocation for me. And all of these people, they did not know that I was asking each other, but all of them was giving me testimonials, unintentional, of what I did for them. So now we think if there is a business you want to go into, here is what you did for me. Here is what you did for me.
So you really weren't sure, you didn't think of yourself as being a life coach when in fact you actually were doing that. Sounds like.
Yes, I went down the first time, I went down to a gentleman down on Mill Plain Road, hire him as my coach. And the first session, he looked at me and he said, Daphne, why aren't you doing what I'm doing? I said, what are you talking about? He said, you see everything on this paper is not what I can do for you, but what I learned from the conversation we have had for the past 25 minutes that I'm going to include in my practice. He said, you are a natural at this. This thing just flows out of you.
There's a gentleman whose office is behind my Coldwell Banker real estate office. He's in the back, and I'm thinking that might be him or it might be somebody different that Emily Volpentesta, my occasional co-host, studies with. And he's Greek. I can't think of his name.
His name is John?
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for many years. I have to go look him up.
Yeah, so right at 18 Mill Plain Road in the back.
Up second,
no,
third floor.
might be somebody different.
So, yeah.
Might be somebody different. But we're going to come back. We're going to continue this discussion, but we're going to come back and do a second show.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to tell the audience and me, without naming specific names, but tell us about some examples of things, of instances, what people have sought from you, how you've attempted to help them, and we can something to motivate people to come to you. And it's been Progressive Soup. I'm David Stevenson, and Daphne Clarke-Hudson, my esteemed guest today. We're going to come back and we'll do a show for tomorrow. Good night.